Inspired talks of Swami Vivekananda, Pranam Mantra. Om Namah Shri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Sure Sachit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. So it was Tuesday, August 1, 1895, and Swamiji had been discussing lots of things which we have partly discussed in the earlier talk. Not Tuesday, it was a Thursday. On Thursday afternoon, Swamiji explains two very interesting things. Or rather, he talks about one very small thing which can be used at two different places. And the next day, which was Friday, Swamiji again talks about importance of commitment, nishtha. These two can be linked beautifully. Swamiji is talking about first how to know the future, although we have titled it Developing Yourself. When Swamiji is talking about how to know your future, this is a very interesting thing because this is one of the yogic powers. And those of you who are interested in knowing the future of others, future of yourself, you can ask your friends to listen to this talk. Swamiji explains. Now, before I explain how to know your future, let me tell you a very funny story. There was a foolish gentleman. He had traveled on his donkey, climbed a tree, and was cutting the branches in Kalidas style. That means he was sitting on the other side of the branch and trying to cut it. So there was a wise gentleman who was passing below. He shouted at him, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You'll fall down." Now, before he could complete, the gentleman fell down. That woodcutter fell down. Must have been a foolish person. Maybe he was cutting it for the first time, or it was probably a chance. Now, this foolish woodcutter, he was so impressed by the power of his future telling. Now, this is a very important thing. Power of his future telling. So he ran after him and said, "Sir, you are such a great fortune teller. You can predict what's going to happen. Could you please tell me when I am going to die?" This question that when I am going to die, this fascinates people. This kind of question, when I will be successful, when I will get married and all those things, will I have a promotion, all these things. So this wise gentleman, he realized that he was a stupid person. So he said that when your donkey has sneezed 3 times, you will die. Donkey generally don't sneeze. And being stupid, he felt that he must make sure that his donkey doesn't sneeze. So he put one stone in one of its nostrils because then he will not have the occasion to sneeze. Air will be flowing only from one nose. But because of the blockade, the donkey sneezed. So he counted one gone. Then second time he put stone in another nostril. Again it sneezed. So scared he put 2 stones in 2 of his nostrils. The donkey sneezed violently. And this fellow fell down from the donkey back. And when people came running to see what had happened, started screaming, "Just tell me whether I am in heaven or in hell." Well, in nutshell, this is all about future telling. You see something which to an ordinary mind is opaque. But you, being a wise person, you who knows the chain of cause and effect, you can predict. Like was the specialty of the scientists. They have so much of knowledge that they understand certain series of cause and effect. And because they understand, they can tell you what's going to happen. Young kids, they get amazed by the power of their moms. Moms can predict that, look, don't do this. This will happen. That happens. Mom and kid gets impressed. Same with teachers. Kids get impressed. Now, if you want to understand life, which Swamiji has put it so beautifully, and it has always impressed me, and I used it in my book Param slightly differently. Here I am sitting in a room. You must be sitting somewhere in some room or some hall somewhere. And just imagine that this room has water wheel type chains which are continuously going up and down. Or you might have seen that cycle chain. As the chain moves with the help of the cycle paddle, the wheel moves, the cycle moves, etc. In most of the machines, even in cars, etc., somehow the chain moves. Nowadays, of course, they have done away with chain and they have a different system. But the bottom line remains. Now they have gearboxes, but the principle remains the same. Now imagine there are hundreds, thousands, and millions of chains. If you chance to enter some large factory, you will see that in that factory there is a huge flywheel. The flywheel moves, and with that flywheel is connected sometimes chains and sometimes belts. And with those belts are connected different parts of machinery. So there is only one flywheel moving, but because of the chain effect or the belt effect, sometimes you will see some path moving in the same direction, sometimes parts moving in an opposite direction, sometimes at some angle. Those of you who have been to different factories might have seen, and those of you who have worked in some factories will definitely know it. Think of hundreds of chains and just imagine that these chains are moving differently. Some of these chains going up, sometimes some of these chains going down, etc., etc. Now, if you know how the machine works, if you know the principle of chain, like in gearboxes earlier, we used to have these watches and they used to have lots of gears. The hand of owl will move at some speed and that of minute and that of second differently. It all depended on the gear. Idea is same. If you understand the mechanism, you can very clearly say how the chain is going to move. If something is like, those of you might have seen movies where newspapers are published, printed, they have the same thing. Things are moving differently. In that particular chain, if you catch hold of one major event, one thing which is doing a major work, you can clearly predict what's going to happen, how the things are going to move. You will be surprised to know that life is exactly that. My life, your life, his life, her life, everyone's life. Because this world has been compared with many things. That includes a huge ashwatha tree. I used a banyan tree in my book, Tia. and many other things. Some say, like say, web, like a net, like an ocean, like this, like that. But actually, life is more like jumble of chains that are moving in patterns in extremely well organized manner. If you catch hold of one major event, you can tell what's going to happen. But there is a catch. If perchance, a person, me, you, her, she, somehow moves from one particular chain to another chain, then it cannot be predicted. For example, take the case of Swami Vivekananda. One of his brother monks, Swami Yogananda, they became annoyed for some reason and said, look, if Sri Ramakrishna were not there, what you would have been? Maybe a famous barrister, so what? Today you are a world famous person. Swami Vivekananda changed his chain and everything changed. Think of, like, I'm sitting here in Kolkata, Howrah, and my favorite route is Howrah to Delhi. And I have to imagine these things, I always imagine through trains. You go from here to Assansol, get down there, take an express train. Now your journey will be different. You take Rajdhani, your journey will be different. Now we have Vande Bharat Express, things like that. They're coming. These chains seem to somewhere there are intersections. And if you give up one chain and move on to another chain, for example, whenever I look back at my life, I wonder what my life would have been if I had not become a monk. What I would have been? Some clerk somewhere, maybe a teacher. And my favorite is primary school teacher. You don't have to do much. Maybe I would have loved to study. When I was a student, I used to imagine myself to be a gatekeeper so that during my duty hours I could read books, and during my off hours I could fully read books. But see, I'm a monk, my life has become completely different. This is what Swamiji explains. If you can somehow develop your intuitive power by which you will be able to catch a particular major event in a person's life, you can easily pinpoint that person's past and also future, because the past and future, they are all embedded in the present. If you look at a sapling of any plant, you can very easily say what kind of seed it had and what kind of future it has. Now see, let's not take into account the accidents and this and that. Like, people who argue a lot, they will say this. That's not important. We're talking the general things. So Swamiji say there are endless series of manifestations like merry-go-round. My favorite is water wheel. In Bengali, we call Nagar Dola, huh? Akash Jula in Hindi. 1 minute up, next minute down. It's like karma. Now you are up, now you are down. Merry-go-round, in which the souls ride. I'm riding a particular merry-go-round, and you are riding another merry-go-round. We at the Ramakrishna Mission, all of us are more or less on the same kind of merry-go-round, and that's why we have same kind of food, same kind of routine, etc. So to speak. So this is not to be taken literally. This is just to make us understand. The series are eternal. Whenever there is creation, these manifestations become real, whole thing becomes eternal. Till the till the cycle continues. In next cycle of creation, again there will be endless series of manifestations. Individual souls get out, but the events repeat themselves eternally. Those of you might have seen at any kind of chain or supply chain, things are poured out. Those of you might have seen water wheel in your earlier times. You might have seen water is poured out, chain continues to move, bringing up more and more souls. And that's how one's past and future can be read. Actually, past and future can be read. So, how true, how genuine, how correct is astrology? 100%. Problem is not with astrology. Problem is with the astrologers because most of them do not know. And most of them are actually soothsayers. Soothsayers, they like to say something good and seeing your face, they will predict something bad and this and that. The planets, as predicted in astrology, I am talking about human nature, life of a person, you, me. They don't compel, they impel. They're not compelling forces, they just impel. By nature, they're suggestive, they're not predictive. When you look at a major event, if you know the person well, you might have seen astrologers. If you go to some unknown astrologer, he'll go on asking you lots of questions through that, just like a good investigator, he creates a profile of yours. And through that profile, he starts predicting. Because in any major event, and if you know the major forces that impel your life can very easily be predicted. Just like the fall of the woodcutter was predicted. And yet, these predictions cannot be 100% foolproof. The way when that woodcutter fell from his donkey. Because all is really present. You should know the chain. In that chain, if you just look at one link, you know how things are going to move. If you look at the water wheel and just look at one link, you can easily predict, say, after how much of time it will get filled up, or after how much time it's going to empty, etc., etc. Same with life. Dear listeners, believe me, if you do some japa dhyana, maybe 1 hour a day, your mind will become very sharp. Your intuitive power will develop. So let me tell you a personal joke and don't take it otherwise. Long ago, some 25 years ago, I was young and truly youthful. I, I love to entertain my brother monks. My interaction with the outside world has been extremely feeble. So once I was in Dehradun, Kishanpur Center, there was a monk. He loved me like anything. And many of monks were sitting, and I told Maharaji, let me talk about your life. Let me see your hand. And I just went on telling things to him for maybe half an hour or so. His past, his present, his future, etc. And everyone was so impressed, so impressed, so impressed. And that Swamiji, he loved me. He told me beautiful thing. Told me, Samarpanananda, He knew that I'm just making it up. And yet, lots of things were correct. He said, you have a very keen intuitive power. I never forgot it. It was in 98, 1998. It was November, October. It was October 98. And very clearly said, you have a very keen intuitive power. Now, funny part is, I went back to my room and I was sharing the room with another brother monk. And that monk, he said that, look, I don't believe a word of astrology. But hearing your words today, I'm totally convinced in astrology. Just look at my hand and tell me what's my future. I started laughing. I said, couldn't you catch that I was just making up things? He couldn't believe. And he became so angry with me. He didn't talk to me for many times because I had kind of unsettled his belief. I was just having fun. And for me, most times astrology is just fun. Just when you have to spend time, you take somebody's hand and you start predicting future and talking about past. And if you keep on talking about past, it becomes fascinating. And if some of those things tally, the person overlooks things did not tally because is really all is really present. It's a very interesting thing. You can try, provided you have, as Maharaj had told me, some insight. Now, when the soul is in a certain chain, it has to go through the experiences of that chain. Now, this is very interesting thing. We all are moving in different chains, and we keep on moving from one chain to another or two. Now, you may understand the working of one particular chain, but you may not know the working of another chain. And that's when you will fail. Most astrologers fail. Once one astrologer had told me that it's impossible to talk about the future of monks because the ordinary law of cause and effect do not work on them. The reason is that their chain has become different. A person who is accustomed to traveling only by the local train in Kolkata, he cannot understand how Rajdhani Express runs. From one series, souls go to other series. From some series, they escape forever, realizing that they are Brahman. It's extremely fascinating thing that Swamiji says. How I wish somebody could take up these ideas and write beautiful poetry on that. And these mystic poems will beat maybe a Rumi, persons like Rumi. We are all moving in different chains. And these different chains, they are on that assembly line, are going through different experiences. One chain takes you somewhere, another chain takes you through different experiences. And there's one particular chain that, like escape velocity, takes you completely away from this gravitational zone. You are never to return. You're gone forever. Now, Swamiji is not saying here that this is predictable. For example, when somebody takes to spirituality, it is expected that he has taken up a chain, the chain that will take him to Brahman. However, this is not law of cause and effect. It doesn't contradict Acharya Shankara's views or Upanishad's view that no amount of action can give you self-knowledge. But Swamiji is simply saying that once you take that chain, you will reach Brahman. So most of our devotees who are sincere in their spiritual practices, they have taken to that chain. Sooner or later, they are bound to have self-knowledge. Being too anxious, being too eager, these things do not help. Thing is, you have taken that highway, and that highway leads to realization, and you will reach realization. Just calm down. Just calm down. Focus. You have moved away from all other kind of chains. Now, those chains, there are some chains where a person dies and is born again on this earth. And there is some chain that takes you to Pitri Lok and Gandharva Lok. And there are some chains that take you to Swarga Lok. And there are some chains that take you to Brahma Lok and back. And there is a particular chain that takes you towards liberation. The number of chains working there is infinite, simply infinite. The goal of your life is to give up the chains that are moving back towards life, towards existence. By getting hold of one prominent event in a chain and holding on to it, the whole chain can be dragged in and read. This is actually done. This can actually be done. Like when Sri Ramakrishna used to say that whenever he saw somebody, he could read his past, present, and future. Even Swamiji could. There's a reason. You look at that person and you know everything because in the present, there is everything. This power is easily acquired. And this is what Swamiji says. This power is easily acquired. It's not something very difficult. I mean, it's not difficult to acquire this power. But it's of no real value. See, supposing you know, there was a story I had, a very interesting story. Like Thakur talks about two brothers. One became a yogi. After 20 years of sadhana, he came back and he could walk on water. He said, I can walk on water. And he says, you spent 20 years of your precious life for this. I can do it by spending 2 pies. That is paying to the boatman. Now, there was a very interesting story based on this. It had come out in a very prominent journal. It was a different kind of story. But there, in that story, there was a character who had acquired this power. A morning to evening, he walked on the ocean. But it was of no use. Neither he could teach anyone, nor he could help anybody out of it. The way you walked on the land, he walked on the ocean. How does it help? It doesn't. Supposing you know the past, present, and future of somebody, how does it help that person? Or for that matter, how does it help you? It doesn't. Momentary entertainment, yes, no doubt. Some idle curiosity, yes, no doubt. It's of no real value, absolutely of no real value. See, it's like statistics. You might have seen that when we were young, during our time, there was not many avenues of entertainment. One of them was cricket match, test matches. And the commentators would go on rattling off different statistics. We used to be impressed. Even during that time, I realized that these people in those days, those who are commentators and rattling off statistics, they have never played cricket. Nowadays, of course, they keep expert players there, but they're not very good at statistics. They can just remember what they had done or some player during his time had done. What's the use of that statistics? Nothing. And most times those statistics are absolutely useless. Just like that. What's the use of knowing somebody's future? Can it be changed? No, it cannot be changed because he's on that chain. Can you change your own future? No, you cannot. It's meaningless. This power is easily acquired, is of no real value. And to practice it takes just so much from our spiritual forces. Because when you have the spiritual insight and you use it in knowing the personality of someone, the past and future of somebody. It takes away your spiritual power. Not only this, when you interact with too many people, even that takes away your spiritual power. There's psychic energy. There's a limited supply of psychic energy within you, within me, within everyone. More you interact with others, particularly with those who are not like-minded people, mind it, please share this information with those who want to be spiritual. If you interact beyond a permissible limit, which is beyond 2 to 4 persons, particularly those who are not like minded, who are not spiritual persons, you will massively lose your psychic force. And when you lose your psychic force, the power that makes you grow spiritually becomes weakened, and you don't grow spiritually then. So forget about showing off all these skills. It's not even good. It's not even good to interact with people. Go not after these things. Worship God. You want to realize God. Apply all your energies, all your faculties, everything that God has given into worshipping God. So that was the end of that date. And next day, it was Friday 2nd. Swamiji talks about Nishtha, devotion to an idea, commitment. What Swamiji wants to say here is there are 3 stages of growth in spiritual life, not only in spiritual life, in any kind of life. First is hold on to a particular ideal, keep on growing. That is, supposing you are a devotee of Sri Rama, you hold on to Sri Rama and keep growing. And you grow to that extent where you become free. Like just now we were discussing, it's kind of holding on to a particular chain, and that chain takes you beyond. The second is, as you grow, you harmonize your ideals with others too. That means you say that Sri Rama is true, Sri Krishna is also true, and Shiva is also true. Now, this is really good. But what Swamiji suggests, what Sri Ramakrishna did, and what Ramakrishna Mission stands for is develop yourself. Make your mind so strong that when you want, you can put your mind on an ideal. When you want, you can take your mind away from that and be one with the other one. Later, Swamiji will say that have your mind so powerful that actually you will be one with Advaita. Whenever you want, you can apply your mind to Dvaita, dualism, be there and come back again. This is a real power. Now, essentially, what Swamiji means to say that instead of having just devotion to one ideal, which might make you fanatic, which might make you a man with limited understanding, although it might take you towards realization, it's much better to focus on developing one's brain power. And that's where Raj Yoga helps. A person practicing Raj Yoga actually focuses on developing his mind power. So Swami says, Nishtha is the beginning of realization. Now, unless you have devotion to one ideal, you cannot realize God. Like Swamiji quotes, take the honey out of all flowers, sit and be friendly with all, pay reverence to all, say to all, yes, brother. But keep firm in your own way. Nishtha means that because in India we have quite a few religious sects, religious ideals. And in India, it is natural for you to come across people who do not agree with your religious ideals. For example, it has been matter of traditional quarrel in Bengal between, say, Vaishnavas and Shaktas. If you go to South India, between Shaivas and Shaktas, Shaivas and Vaishnavas, particularly Shaivas and Vaishnavas, it is pretty bad. So you just keep on saying, yes, 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 perfectly all right. No use. But keep firm in your own way. A higher state is actually to take the position of the other. Swamiji is phenomenal here. And it's not only about spiritual life, it's also about our daily life. Take the position of other. Swami says, if I am all, mind it. If Advaita be true, and if I am all, those of you who have been listening to Inspire Talks, you know that Swami is teaching Advaita. And Advaita means that I'm Brahmasmi. I alone have become everything. If I have become everything, then the murderer is also me, and the rapist is also me. And all the mischievous people of this world, they are me. And the learned ones are also me. And the saintly ones, they are also me. That's why I keep telling that India, India that gave Advaita. I I keep on getting invitations, particularly from South India, from this institution, that institution. They all want to talk. They all want me to talk on Advaita. And I politely refuse. I just don't feel like talking. Why should I go on talking about Advaita when you don't even, you practice nothing? This is India that practices caste. This is that India that has been focusing on privileges. This is India that has practiced worst kind of discrimination. This is India that has discriminated against its females, against the lower caste, against this and against that. What right they have to talk about Advaita? Do you have any right to talk about Advaita? Dualists and fanatics are far better. Now, if there is a particular religion that says that my religion is true and other people have no right to live, at least they are being honest. That honesty is misplaced, misguided. Let's not get into that. At least they are being honest. But what about the Hindus? Believe me, they are the worst hypocrites. They'll talk about Advaita and will practice the worst kind of discrimination. Think of yourself. Think of yourself. Do you really believe that Sri Ramakrishna is God? Do you believe? Do you believe that you are children of Sri Ramakrishna? Then what about others? They are also children of Sri Ramakrishna. Then why do you discriminate? And don't come telling me that you don't discriminate. And if you believe in God, are you putting all your energies towards God? If you believe in God, are you trying to serve God? That is by being religious, by trying to help others become religious, by holding the hands of others and trying to make one religious. Do you do it? No. Then what you are? It's just a hypocrite. Believe me, believe me, believe me. People belonging to different religions who apparently are fanatics, who believe in cutting off the heads of others, they may be brutal, but they're true to what they believe, what they say. First step to wisdom is practice what you say. Once while Swamiji was in America, he went to a barber shop and the barber refused to give him a haircut, saying that being a Negro, he was not entitled to this privilege. Swamiji came back. When told, why didn't he say that he's not a Negro? He said, I'm not here to say that I'm superior to others. It's unbelievable. This is unbelievable. Believe me, maybe I would have told I'm not a Negro. Gandhiji did that. When Gandhiji went to South Africa, he said that. And today he's criticized for that. This is Advaita. When somebody says that Negroes are not permitted to enter this shop, Swamiji didn't correct him saying that he's not a Negro. This is Advaita. Under normal conditions, he may say, I am an Indian, I am a Hindu, I am a proud Hindu, all that. But when it is at the cost of somebody else, he will not. Just think, dear listeners, think. Are you a hypocrite? Worse, let me ask you, aren't you a hypocrite? What exactly you do for religion? What exactly you are doing for God? And if you claim yourself to be a Vedantin, are you really established in oneness in your practices? And don't come up with that garbage that this oneness can be practiced only when you have realized no. The practice has to begin here and now. Are you established in inclusiveness? Do you treat the laborers and coolies and porters and those who serve you in lower places as your own? And if not as your own, as your brother, do you? Do you try to bring smile to the underprivileged? No, you don't. What right you have to say that you are a Vedantin? Hindus are the worst privilege taker. Just look at the fighting and quarrel and agitation going on in the name of reservation. Everybody wants reservation. Everyone wants privileges. Why? Because somehow it is in our genes. We want privileges. Those who have gone abroad, they think they are superior. This is a general problem, and of course they are not. But somebody goes to Harvard and says, I am from Harvard. Somebody, things like that. If I am all, why can I not really and actively sympathize with my brother and see with his eyes? If you are really a true Vedantin, why can't you see others as yourself? Why can't you see his viewpoint? Why can't you understand his standpoint? Why can't you understand that why he is misguided? Now, while I am weak, I must stick to one course that is disturbed. But when I am strong, I can feel with every other and perfectly sympathize with his ideas. Might have seen at home, parents tend to agree with their kids most of the time just to make them happy because they understand why the kid is thinking that way. They're so caring towards kids because they understand. If you are a true Vedantin, if you have that level of understanding, why can't you understand what other is thinking and why he's thinking so? Why she is thinking that way? Then Swamiji says, the old idea was develop one idea at the expense of all the rest. That's Nishtha. You take up one idea, hold on to that, and grow. The modern way is harmonious development. The third way is to develop the mind and control it, which I discussed in the beginning. Develop your mind. And then put it where you will. The result will come quickly. Instead of focusing on the ideal, develop. Develop your mind. In the Vedic tradition, they never talked about developing an ideal or growing on an ideal. They said, practice Gayatri Mantra. Om Bhurvasva Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayat. When you repeat this mantra, when you meditate on this mantra, your mind will become extremely powerful. Once your mind becomes powerful, you can apply it anywhere. If you apply it in science, you will become a scientist. And if you apply it in literature, you'll become a great writer. Mind power. This is developing yourself. If you want to develop yourself, you must not develop by focusing on one idea. You try to develop your mind power. And mind becomes so powerful that wherever you put it, it works. And one sign that your mind has become really powerful is to take in the ideas of others. You know that he is wrong, but you also know why he is wrong. So you sympathize with him. You don't go on contradicting with him. When we were young, we used to quarrel on trivials. We used to have real fights on this and that issues. As you grow, you become calm because you slowly start realizing that no, not that he has a point, but that we can understand why his ideas are like that. Learn concentration and use it in indirection, thus you lose nothing. He who gets the whole must have the past too. Dualism is included in Advaitism, that is monism. This is a very interesting statement by Swamiji. I would love to explain it once again. Dvaita, Vishishta Dvaita, these are all included in Advaita, as has been described in Mandukya Karika, which you will find in our playlist. We stop here, and if you want, you can join our question answer session, which will be starting within 5 minutes, and we'll take it up from here. Thank you. Om Shanti Shanti.